So what do you think is going to happen to Tesla stock now? And what are all the possible Tesla stock catalysts that could be coming this last month of this year and for 2025? Today, we'll be asking Simon Hale, a portfolio manager, to review a complete list of milestones that are coming and get his thoughts on which ones will be stock catalysts. Simon is a senior wealth advisor for Wellington Altus Private Wealth, which has $30 billion under management. They manage investments for wealthy families in North America and abroad. Thank you for joining me again, Simon.
Thanks for having me, Herbert.
Happy holidays. It's Thanksgiving here, and it looks like it's Christmas already in Canada. Thank you so much. So let's go through the things that are happening in Tesla world. This is a list of milestones that I've been keeping track for 2024. And down here is still the last month of the year, December. And so let's go through each of these, which ones are coming. But if you look backwards a bit of what happened in a year, there were several that did not end up happening, like Gig of Nueve Leon groundbreaking. It did not occur. I think we all thought that there was going to be another Megapack factory announced, but they basically put a hold on factories. So let's go through this list, and then you tell me which ones you think could actually be a stock catalyst. FSD version 13. We saw yesterday that Ashok Swami said that it's fire. It's looking really good. There are some people thinking that it's going to come out by Thanksgiving. So when it does come out, let's assume December, and they said 13.3 could be rolled out to wide to everybody, but it's expected to be a 6 times improvement. Elon himself says it's trending towards a 500%, which is a 5 times improvement. Do you think version 13 is going to be a catalyst for the stock?
I don't think so. I think I've talked about this even to clients that when they went end-to-end neural net, that this was groundbreaking, and people are going to look back on this. This is the beginning, the advent of moving to autonomy. And the market, there was tumbleweeds in the market. And now I think people in the Tesla community are extremely excited because we're watching the improvements and they're staggering. And we love seeing, we get excited and it comes out and we get the update. And we use it and we see the progress and we know where this is going. So we get excited, but I don't think many analysts are going to get it. They're not going to change their models. So no, I don't think that's going to drive the price, but it sure is going to be nice to drive.
Exactly. Okay, so the rest of the year, what we are also expecting is the judge in Delaware is going to make a judgment on the Elon compensation package. She had delayed it till after the election. I think we're thinking it's going to happen sometime in December. We also are expecting Federal Reserve to announce possibly more lowering interest rates. And then, of course, at the beginning of next year, we'll see the Q4 P&D numbers. What's your thoughts of any of these three of potential impact?
I think most of the overhang on the compensation has been removed after the vote during the annual shareholder meeting. But I suspect it will cause some kind of positive momentum the day that it's announced. It's just one less overhang, but it's not going to be a serious momentum driver. In terms of rates, we are going to see, and it's not just at the next meeting. And if we see rates come down another quarter point, if we see them come down half a point, that will really drive all growth assets and markets. It's increased liquidity. And that's actually what's driving the market, and lower rates is what's driving a significant portion of Tesla stock currently as well. Tesla is a long-term hyper grower, and we're always looking at the future cash flows for 10, 20 years. So I don't think just the meeting announcement, but similar to what we've had in throughout beginning of 2022 into 2023, where we had interest rates going up. I think that was the majority of the decline in Tesla stock and their sales growth numbers was due to interest rates. And it's rarely talked about, but it had a significant impact on their business, on their sales, and the valuation of the company in turn. So it was just this perfect storm to crush the stock. Now, that being said, what happens when we go in the other direction? What happens when interest rates start coming down? So that's going to increase the value of their long-term cash flows. And secondly, it's going to have a huge impact on the affordability of vehicles. And especially we're going into, you got to think of it's not just, I mean, it affects all vehicle sales, but we're seeing the number of electric vehicles being sold, or percentage relative to all vehicles on the market, is significantly higher today than it was 3 years ago. Probably, if my guess would be 30-40% higher. Does that sound about accurate?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, you've got a larger total addressable market, and you have a catalyst, the wind at the back. I think that's going to have a significant impact. Is it this, and it's not just going this quarter, but we're in the midst of realizing that. We're watching it happen, and I think that's going to continue right until the end of next year. And that's probably the single largest, I think, influence on the stock.
Okay, yeah, okay. And then Tom Lee of Fundstrat still very bullish about the rest of the year onwards for the Mag 7 and just stocks in general. What's your firm saying about the economy and what you're expecting with the tech stocks?
Yeah, we think that we're entering this golden era like we've seen early 1996. And so that's the comparison that we're using. And we think that we're early innings of a bull market that's going to last into next decade. This is, Internet 2.0, but this is larger. We're talking about the changes in AI. And there's only a few companies out there that are just light years ahead of their competition. They do things differently. They move faster than the competition. Tesla's one of them, probably our favorite. And NVIDIA is another. And there is no other Tesla. There is no other NVIDIA. And we're watching how fast they're running. So I like the fact that we're going through this list today of the catalyst, because we're entering this golden era. And I think the stock is probably worth $450 to $500 based on what we have now. But to get to that next big leap, which is why most people are listening to your channel, they're saying, hey, how do we get the stock to $1,000 and $2,000? And for that, we're going to need to see execution on other things on that list going into next year in 2026, which Tesla's pretty good at executing.
One thing I've learned is that no matter what kind of milestones Tesla hits, stock doesn't move if basically the base business, like an auto, if you don't have margins, if you don't have earnings, if you haven't right that ship yet, if the economy is not yet this kind of a booming economy, if it was, and there's money on the sidelines being thrown into investments, then companies like Tesla, beta stocks, tech stocks, growth stocks, story stocks, those are the ones finally will benefit from it. But before that, you can hit milestone after milestone, won't do anything because people are like, conservative, trying to save their money and so forth. So,
exactly. And we see them hitting these milestones, and we sort of shake our heads and we say, well, why isn't the stock rallying? It's always tumbleweeds. They have the Robotaxi event and the stock goes down. They launch the Cybertruck and everybody gets excited and the stock goes down the next day. And so you're absolutely right. But that being said, I think where there's this perfect storm brewing where we're going to have the completion of FSD next year. When that happens and we can go unsupervised, the take rate on that is going to increase substantially. We're going to have China. I suspect China 6 months from now they're going to have availability, and even if it's just a version 13 in China, Chinese are so much quicker to adapt to technology than we are. So I mean, the amount of cars, I think there's about a third of all Tesla's fleet is in China. And you turn on that switch and all of a sudden that's revenue. You've got, I think margins bottomed last quarter, and we're starting to see an acceleration. We're seeing Cybertruck margins. We're actually seeing profitability in Cybertruck as they ramp. So you have all these catalysts, and then they're talking about volume growth next year with the next version or lower priced Teslas. This creates this recipe for, you have to think of, they are not building out any more factories. So this creates extremely compelling operating leverage, right? And so you could easily have their earnings next year growing by 50 to 100% earnings per share. And the street will just say, what the heck just happened there? And they did it on the existing infrastructure that they have in place, right? It didn't cost them any more than what they're doing, and their existing CapEx as well.
Thank you, Simon. And I know that you have a big thing on or energy, Tesla energy. So let's all talk about it because you've done a lot of analysis on that, and you're dead on. And it showed up when you pointed it out the quarter before. It then showed up exactly the way you're saying. Gosh, people miss this, and it did happen. So let's take a look at 2025. This is the list of the things that are expecting Q1, Q2. And then when we don't exactly know, we call this first half of the year. Then you got Q3, second half of the year. And then, of course, we also have a list for 2026. So which one of these do you think would be catalyst, right? We heard just there's rumors, news from China that the Giga Shanghai or Megapack for Shanghai could actually already be completed and will launch this month before the January, but we still put it at Q1. You got these superclusters. We just saw one of the Tesla AI team members come out and say that the FSD version 13 is powered by Cortex. So we know it's already at 65% complete. By now, it might almost already be 100,000 already fully running now, but we put Q1. We know that the Model Y Revise is coming soon. We put that as Q1. And affordable vehicle production, start of production, we're going to push it to Q2. At some point, there will be a federal framework for autonomous driving. We'll put that at Q2. At any moment, we can hear an OEM licensing of FSD or FSD China being approved first half of the year. Then you got new Megapack factory announced. I'm the only one that threw that in. I think that once you've got the two Megapack factories already ongoing, they're probably going to announce where the next location is. And then you've got, so let's pause there. That's the first half of the year. What do you think about that list?
Sure, I'll just touch on one by one. So Megapack factory launch, that's not going to have any material impact. It's until we see those energy numbers come in, which I think we'll see big energy numbers next year as well. And that's also a driver of the stock, but the launch of a new factory never does a whole lot for the stock. Cortex, and that's for us. We get really excited about this. It's really going to be what does it produce? And again, not going to move the stock. The Juniper, the revised Model Y, that's a big deal. This is the number one selling car in the world. I think there's a lot of people, many people that are starting to put off the buy of a Model Y. And not just that, but if it is anything as good as the new Model 3, it's gonna mop the floor with the competition. I mean, Model Y is already the number one selling car in the world, and then they're gonna make it better. I mean, the backlog on this, I think, is going to be huge. So yes, I think that will drive the price when they start seeing that they're going to start producing these as many as they can at each factory. I just hope that they can do the rollout well in all the factories at the same time. The Model 3 was kind of chunky, took a while to come to North America, Europe. I think they've learned they learned some lessons from that. So I think they're going to be able to do it almost simultaneously, but that's a big deal. Affordable startup production. I mean, just talking about the affordable car, you're not referring to the Model 2 or whatnot. You're thinking of just a more affordable 3 and Y, and
Yes.
That's just going to help them push out more vehicles, right? They're going to be so that comes down to what is their capacity. I think they've stated they have installed capacity of roughly 3 million. And I think that may surprise Wall Street. Wall Street's thinking that they can do, 2.2 to 2.3 next year. I suspect they could get over 2.5. If all these things, you got to hit like check. Right. And I'm a perma bull, so I'm optimistic that they'll hit these, but they could be late depending on a lot of factors. The framework for autonomy.
It's already built in, right? Because it's already been announced and everybody assumed it's already there. Yeah. It hasn't happened, but they're going, it's likely going to happen now.
Yeah. If there's a licensing deal announced, that's going to drive the stock.
That's the one.
I just don't. If they have a license deal, I suspect it'll be with the Chinese. You have to have. You can't put this FSD in a regular internal combustion, or it has to be a computer on wheels. And the legacy OEMs aren't making computer on wheels. They're making gas cars with batteries, or they just remove the internal combustion and they throw a battery in for the propulsion unit. But I don't see them being actually robots on wheels. And so that's why I think it would be China first. But they may announce something with Ford and say, hey, you know what, we're going to do something, or Rivian for that matter. Rivian just doesn't have the volume. You really have to do a volume vehicle. But that announcement, absolutely key. Does it happen in the first half of next year? You guys, well, your guess is as good as
Yeah.
mine.
Yep.
FSC China, that will definitely, it won't move the
Small
stock when
bump.
they announce it, but I think
Yeah.
it'll affect the earnings
Yeah.
because it's pure profit. It's pure profit,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And then again, whenever they announce a new factory, doesn't really
Nothing
move the
happens.
needle. Yeah.
Right. Okay. One thing that I have not put in this list, and I will before I complete this, is the earnings calls, right? Because there's always an earnings call in the first quarter, second quarter, every quarter. And we know that it's actually the earnings calls that actually move the needle for the stock. Okay. It's if you see a growth, if you see increased sales, if you see increased earnings, that will move the stock. So, those are the most likely. I just want people to understand that, no, we understand. Most of these are milestones. They won't do anything to stock, but most often it's just the earnings. If you see a bump in earnings, you see a growth path for that, that's where stock jumps.
And this
But
stock, go ahead, finish.
yeah, except
Okay.
for what you pointed out, right? OEM licensing is a big one. And actually, these vehicles could be big ones because they mean sales, they means bigger market. Those are the things people are looking forward to.
Yeah, and the point as well is I get the sense. I mean, I've been in the stock business for over 20 years, and it's either in a bull market or bear market. It's that simple. Don't
Mhm.
overthink it. We're in a
Mhm.
bull market. There are short-term pullbacks that should be bought, and Tesla is going to be a huge benefactor of this bull market, and it's trading off technicals. And I'm not telling everyone to go out and mortgage their house and buy this stock, but
Mhm.
this stock right now wants to go up, and
Gotcha.
it will run up. It consolidates. It runs up. It consolidates. Very difficult to time. But I have noticed in the Tesla community that we've been so burned by the stock over the last 3 years that the second it goes up, I mean, we're not even back at all-time highs. And as soon as it breaks 300, you have people saying, I'm selling, I'm trimming, we've made so much money so far. And my take on it is you're kind of, I get the sense it's almost like you're this person that's been abused, and
Mhm.
you have
Yeah,
this
yeah,
shell shock, and you're so
yeah.
quick to pull the trigger because over the last three
Mhm.
years, every time it goes up by 20%, it just sells off again. And
Mhm.
we haven't trimmed in our portfolios. We're running at 12 to 15% now. We're waiting for a call from our compliance to say, hey, it's time to trim. But we do have the ability. We're not allowed to put on a position larger than 10%, and we built our position to 10% over the last few years. And
Mhm.
now we're just letting it run. We can allow it to grow over 15, 20%. We will have to trim. But that's a good problem to have, right?
I love it. Okay, let's go second half here. We pushed FSD Europe apart. China moves a little faster, so we think that that's more likely to happen in the first half, but we don't know about Europe. Second
Mm-hmm.
half, he did say that at some point, both he and Ashok said that at some point FSD is going to be, unsupervised FSD is going to be safer than a human. We'll put that in the second half if everything turns out right. And so far, if they've got the right training clusters, they've got all these data. That's why if the FSC rolls out even further, they got more data to play with, the more likely that that milestone will be hit. What do you think about that one? If they do announce that at some point, FSD is now as safe as human in terms of critical interventions, nothing? People don't understand it still. It's still not a
Yeah,
business, right?
yeah, they don't understand it, and even the unsupervised. I'll be delighted when that happens. I don't think it's going to move. I don't think it's. I
Mm,
could be wrong. I don't think it's moved the
yeah.
stock, but I think it's a combination of all of these happening at once
Mm-hmm.
that's going to keep driving the stock higher. It's not like they're going to come out and say, "Hey, guess what? We've got unsupervised." People say they'll roll their eyes, but what will happen is you're going to have older folks come in more and buy the cars, as many as they can, and they're
Yeah.
because they don't want to drive anymore. And so you're going to have this it's going to be a catalyst to their overall sales, and that's when we'll probably see them starting to raise the price of FSD. But that's going to be, and then you look at their global fleet next year. and I'm sure you run the numbers many times, but the global fleet next year will probably be 8-9 million vehicles on the
Right.
road. That
Yeah.
FSD take rate all of a sudden jumps, and then we see it on the earnings, and we just see these operating leverage growth, 50, 100% year over year for the next 2 years. That's going to propel the stock much higher.
Okay. Let's keep going. So you got Cortex Supercluster 200,000. I mean, you can't not have this in your milestone, right? Like it's so critical to have like tracking of supercomputer. This is the AI story. Problem is, it's not going to move the stock, right? But
I know.
it's just something. But it really is the most important milestone, honestly, if you think about it.
And that's a good thing, actually. The fact that
Yeah.
you understand this, people in the community get it, and you're
Yeah.
watching it, it really creates opportunity. That's why this is one of the best AI opportunities, if not the best opportunity currently in the market, and it's underpriced. You guys get it.
Yeah, this is the thing, right? This 100,000 is today the largest supercomputer in the world. And then in just a few months, it's going to be double that. And if you compare it to all the others like Meta, Microsoft, OpenAI, all these guys, Google, they're nowhere near this. Like they're by the time they catch up to the H1, this equivalent here, the XAI is already higher. And then, by the way, I've just learned that I did a show with Brian Wang, and he pointed out that as soon as XAI switches over to the B200s, they don't need the H100s and they give it to Tesla. And that explains why in the article that said that XAI is raising $6 billion and they ended up raising $5 billion or something like that in that article, it said that Tesla's FSD relies on the XAI supercomputer. And like, we're all going, what? Why would Tesla's FSD rely on XAI supercomputer? Because apparently that could be the answer, that once they're done with it, they give it to Tesla, and all of a sudden Tesla's growing.
And that's a big leap up. Yeah. So
faster than anyone.
So, and I talk to clients about this. We put it into we're trying to explain to people, because we still get pushback. We have clients that own car dealerships. We have car buffs. And we try to explain this, and we say, you don't understand. They don't even have any competition. To say that there's no other company that can make these cars at a profit. But then I start asking a very simple question. Is there any other car company in the world that has this kind of compute or is even doing this? And we're not talking China. I'm saying like the car companies that most people in North America are aware of. They're not doing this. And then you listen to an interview with Jensen Huang of NVIDIA, and he says what Elon Musk has been able to do with building out their supercluster, the 100,000 H100s, it's incredible. It's miraculous. It takes years to do this, and they did it in less than a year. And they're taking what they've learned from that and applying it to Tesla. So there's nobody that's going to have this kind of compute for many years to come. And when they do, it's already too far gone, right?
Yep. So they did promise the unsupervised ride-hailing launch. Now that's got to be a test catalyst, right? This is a paid robotaxi service or do you think people will go, oh yeah, well, I mean, Waymo's already doing it now in 7 cities. This is just another test.
I think that's going to be the reaction, but I could be wrong. People talk about Waymo. Oh, it's already there. It's already there. Now Tesla's second to the game. Right. And it'll be a similar thing to, when Apple came out with the iPhone, they said, well, there's already smartphones.
That's it.
And you would see, they look at the BlackBerry, it's got, keyboard on it. And who's going to buy a phone without a keyboard? So I think it'll be a moment like that. And then it'll just happen to be with adoption, and you'll start seeing them ramp these up and produce them. And again, people in the test community get it, where you have this full self-driving car, and you can buy 10 of them at $30,000 a pop, put them on the road, and within a year you're going to see Uber's margins starting to decrease dramatically, and that's when the street will wake up to that.
We got Dojo Gen 2. You got lithium refining plant going to be fully operational. Tesla bought more than 1,000 internal use. That's got to be if you actually start seeing 1,000, maybe. Vehicle sales more than 2.2 million. That rounds out for the rest of the year. Anything there that, I mean, Tesla bot, really? That's not a stock catalyst until they got what, a million, like a million of them. That's when it becomes a catalyst. When does it become a catalyst? It's got to be beyond just their own internal use, right? It's got to be a customer deal, a big customer deal saying, hey, logistics distribution factory saying we're going to buy, a million of these or thousands of these.
Again, I think it's going to be, when we watch the
We Robot,
the Tesla, the Robot, there was some, but the Tesla semi,
yeah.
right? And I look at that and I say, when they get to volume production, it's actually going to add significant EBITDA margin, but you have to get to scale. And the market has always shrugged it off, despite how brilliant it was and how profitable these trucks will be. I think in terms, the only thing that's different is we are in this AI revolution, and everybody's looking for the next AI big thing. And I think that will help classify the company and Wall Street will recognize, hey, this is an AI play, and look at all the things they're doing. And then you'll have more and more Wall Street analysts saying, look at their compute, look what they're doing. And they'll really start analyzing the robotics and their AI talent. And that's when they'll start putting it into the models. But when they just release this and they say it's at their plant, at least it'll help Wall Street wake up, because they invite all the big analysts from Wall Street to their factories, right? And I remember listening or reading some of the reports. We're talking back in 2019, 2018, and some of these analysts from it may have been Morgan Stanley or Goldman, but they were talking about walking these plants and how blown away they were at how advanced they were. And until they actually walked the plant and saw what they're doing, they really couldn't, put pen to paper and put it into the spreadsheet. So I think it could be, but I think we're going to get a lot more excited about that at first, and then you'll gradually start seeing Wall Street waking up to this AI play. But our chief strategist, Jim Thorne, he's banging on the table saying, "Hey, guys, PMs across the country, this is the AI play. Please make sure you have it in all your clients' portfolios, because by the time Wall Street wakes up to this, it's going to be too late."
Nice. Okay, you guys get it. Wellington Altus gets it. Okay, I'm not going to go through 2026, but there's a list of 2026. We're building it now. And some people think it's actually 2026. That's really where things will come. Others believe that 2025, before 2026, you actually have maybe a robotaxi kind of a first client. You'll have Tesla bot. You've got energy fully ramped. You've got next year, right? You're going to have Cybertruck fully ramped. You're going to have Tesla Semi on its way to ramping. Everything's now basically heading there.
Yeah.
But some of the new cars might still be in the early stages, and people still don't get it, but they will have to get it by 2026. Where do you stand on that? Do you think that we call it the great repricing of Tesla, will it happen 25 or 26 in your mind?
I think that we're gradually getting there. I see the stock market looks out, usually 12 months ahead, sometimes 18 months ahead. But I like to think, okay, 12 months ahead. And so if we think that the great repricing is happening in 2026, it may start happening in 2025. The catalyst that I see, where I see that we could have massive earnings growth next year in a percentage wise, that's already in play, and it's happening, and that's why we see the stock starting to increase in value. But to get this great repricing, I think early 2026, you're going to have to see them execute, and the market gradually waking up to this. The other thing too is Tesla could, as it's running during this period, there's a lot of people that just say, I just need to own the stock, and Wall Street's extremely underweight this stock in portfolios. And so I also believe that you're going to have a lot of large institutional fund managers needing to add to this portfolio over the next year. And that's, again, you could easily see the stock run from $500 to $1,000 by the end of next year. But again, one thing I learned early on in my career, Herbert, and I always try to remember this, is that stocks can remain irrational longer than you or I can remain solvent. and that goes, and that's
Yeah.
in both directions, right?
Yeah.
So, and Tesla is probably one of the most irrational stocks out there. So we just have to, take that with a grain of salt and say, look, it can be underwater for long, and it can also be overvalued as well. And I think when we first get that repricing, it's probably going to get overvalued. You're going to have FOMO kicking in. You're going to have it driving, and everybody's going to point to a reason as to justify the price, despite the fact that it's probably gone overvalued. But right now, it's still undervalued, in my opinion. It's been undervalued for a number of years. If you look at where the stock traded, 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and what they've accomplished in that time, they've been executing. And I think that's what most people should just stay focused on: is this company executing? Are they making the best product on the street? And if you believe that, then just own the stock
and just wait for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. So Simon is a senior wealth advisor. Company's called Wellington Altus Private Wealth. You can find him on the website wellington-altus.ca. Check him out. Follow him on X. He's great. Simon Hale 007. Thank you so much. Appreciate you joining us. Okay, so he's not all business. There you go. But what's cool about you is you actually buy and own quite a bit of Tesla products. You play with FSD, you test it yourself. It's just crazy when you talk to these analysts and they've never tried FSD. It's like, okay, well then, no, it's fair. I'm not telling you have to, but
I
tried it yourself.
I use the analogy, and I don't know if it's pro for your channel, but I use an analogy of, it's like a teenager reading a book about sex. You can't understand it unless you try it. And when I have
you drive all the cars, the vehicles, you understand everything in and out.
I have an extra Model S, and I give it to clients, and I lend it to them for a week so they can try it.
Because you bought this friggin' Cybertruck when you didn't need to. Now I got this, like, what do I do with this? That's what happened. Jesus.
Exactly.
All right, buddy. See you soon. See you next time. Right. Bye.
Thanks, Herbert. Take care.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.